Big question, why did the British occupy Nigeria, and how did it impact the country? Korla was a bright, curious boy who loved to read about history. His small village had a dusty old library, and although it was rarely visited, Korla would often find himself lost among the old, tattered books. One day, while exploring the back shelves, he stumbled upon something unusual, a strange device hidden beneath a pile of forgotten books. The device was small, metallic, and had various buttons and levers, with a note attached that read, "For those who seek to learn from the past." Korla's curiosity got the better of him. He pressed one of the buttons, and suddenly, everything around him started to blur. The bookshelves, the wooden floor, even the air itself seemed to ripple. Before he could make sense of what was happening, he found himself standing in a different place, surrounded by lush greenery and the sound of distant voices. As he looked around in awe, he saw an older man walking toward him, a man who looked very much like the wise storyteller, Chinua Achebe. "Welcome, Korla," Achebe said, his voice warm and welcoming. "You've traveled back in time, to a place where stories of the past come to life. Today, we'll explore the story of British rule in Nigeria." Achebe began to walk, and Korla followed, his eyes wide with amazement. They soon arrived at a clearing where a group of people were gathered, discussing something with great intensity. As Korla watched, he realized that these were the leaders of different Nigerian communities, debating how to deal with the growing influence of the British in their land. Achebe explained, "The British first came to Nigeria in the late 19th century, drawn by our rich resources like palm oil, ivory, and later groundnuts. At first, they came as traders, but soon they wanted more. They sought to control the trade routes, and eventually the entire land. This was part of a larger practice known as imperialism, where European powers sought to dominate and exploit other nations for their own benefit." As they continued watching, Korla noticed that not all the Nigerian leaders were in agreement. Some were willing to cooperate with the British, hoping to benefit from the trade and the new technologies they brought. Others, however, were deeply suspicious and resisted the British attempts to take control. A subplot emerged as Korla focused on one of the leaders, a young warrior named Ogun, who was fiercely opposed to the British presence. Ogun believed that the British were only interested in exploiting their land and resources, and that they would eventually strip Nigerians of their independence. However, Ogun's father, an older, more cautious leader, argued that they should at least try to negotiate with the British, as outright resistance could lead to devastating consequences. This conflict between father and son added a layer of complexity to the story, highlighting the difficult choices that Nigerians faced as they tried to navigate the changing world around them. As the days passed, Ogun's anger and frustration grew. He saw more and more of his people being drawn into the British sphere of influence, either through trade or through treaties that the British forced upon them. Meanwhile, his father's health began to decline, leaving Ogun with the heavy burden of leadership. Ogun's subplot intersected with the main narrative as he grappled with his father's advice and his own instincts. Should he follow in his father's footsteps and try to find a peaceful solution, or should he trust his own judgment and fight to protect his people's way of life? This internal conflict deepened as Ogun started to realize that the British were not just another trading partner. They were systematically undermining the traditional power structures and imposing their own laws. One evening, after another heated argument with his father, Ogun went to a quiet spot by the river, where he often went to think. As he sat by the water, he encountered another young man, a British missionary who had come to spread Christianity and Western education. The missionary, Jonathan, was earnest and genuinely believed he was helping the Nigerian people by introducing them to what he saw as a superior way of life. The conversation between Ogun and Jonathan became a key subplot, exploring themes of cultural clash, moral dilemmas, and the complexity of human motivations. Jonathan did not see himself as an oppressor. He truly believed in his mission. But Ogun saw him as part of the larger British plan to dominate and control his people. As they talked, Ogun challenged Jonathan's beliefs, asking him, "How can you justify imposing your way of life on others? Do you not see that our traditions, our beliefs, and our ways are just as valid as yours. Jonathan, caught off guard, struggled to respond. He had never considered that his actions might be harmful. He had been taught that his mission was noble, that he was bringing enlightenment to a dark continent. But Ogun's words planted a seed of doubt in his mind, forcing him to question his own role in the British presence in Nigeria. This conversation introduced a moral dilemma for the readers. Is it ever justified to impose one's beliefs on another culture? What are the ethical implications of such actions? Through Ogun and Jonathan's dialogue, readers are encouraged to consider different perspectives and the consequences of actions taken in the name of civilization or progress. Archie turned to Corla and asked, "What do you think, Corla? Can someone truly help another if they don't understand or respect their way of life?" Corla hesitated. "I think maybe they can't. Even if they mean well, it's important to respect other people's choices and traditions." Achebe nodded. "That's a wise observation, Corla. History is filled with examples of good intentions leading to harmful outcomes. It's important to think critically about the actions we take and the impact they might have on others." As they continued to explore the events of the past, Corla became more aware of the rich and diverse settings around him. The vibrant marketplaces where traders from different parts of Nigeria exchanged goods, the serene villages where families gathered around evening fires to share stories, and the bustling colonial outposts where British officials imposed new laws and collected taxes. Archie used these vivid settings to bring the story to life, appealing to Corla's senses and creating a strong sense of place. The smell of roasting yams, the sound of drums echoing through the night, the sight of bright fabrics fluttering in the wind. Each detail added depth to the narrative and made the history feel real and tangible. The story also highlighted the agency and resilience of the Nigerian people. Despite the overwhelming power of the British, many communities found ways to resist and maintain their cultural identity. Some, like Ogun, took up arms and fought back, while others found subtler ways to resist, such as preserving their language, traditions, and stories. Ogun's journey became one of self-discovery and empowerment. He realized that leadership was not just about strength, but also about wisdom, compassion, and the ability to unite people. As his father's health worsened, Ogun was forced to take on more responsibility, and he grew into a leader who could inspire and rally his people. In the end, Ogun decided to combine his father's diplomatic approach with his own fierce determination to protect his people. He sought out allies among other resistant groups and began to organize a more coordinated effort to challenge British rule. The narrative also touched on contemporary issues such as social justice, cultural diversity, and the consequences of colonialism. Archie explained how the British divide-and-rule tactics exacerbated ethnic tensions in Nigeria, creating divisions that would have long-lasting effects on the country. Corla, reflecting on this, asked, "Is that why there are still conflicts in Nigeria today? Because of what the British did?" Archie nodded solemnly. "Yes, Corla. The legacy of colonialism is complex and often painful. The divisions it created still affect us today. But understanding our history can help us find ways to heal and move forward." This discussion encouraged Corla, and by extension, the readers, to think critically about the connections between the past and present, and to consider how historical injustices can continue to impact society. Throughout the narrative, Corla experienced a range of emotions, from anger at the injustices faced by his ancestors to admiration for their resilience, to a deep sense of sadness at the loss of life and culture. Archie guided him through these emotions, helping him to understand that it was okay to feel conflicted and that these feelings were part of learning and growing. At one point, Corla expressed his anger. "It wasn't fair what they did to us. How could they just take over our land like that?" Archie placed a hand on Corla's shoulder. "It's true, it wasn't fair. But it's important to channel that anger into something positive, into a desire to learn, to educate others, and to work towards a better future." This conversation highlighted the importance of emotional intelligence, teaching Corla how to process complex emotions and use them constructively. As the journey through history came to an end, Archie and Corla returned to the clearing where they had first met. The scene around them faded, and soon Corla found himself back in the library, holding the strange device in his hand. The experience had left a deep impression on him. He felt wiser, more aware, and more connected to his roots. Archie's voice echoed in his mind as he looked out the library window at the setting sun. The past is always with us, Corla. It shapes who we are and who we can become. But it's up to us to learn from it and make choices that lead to a better future. With a newfound sense of purpose, Corla carefully placed the device back on the shelf, knowing that he would return to it soon, ready to learn more. He left the library with a heart full of questions, but also with a sense of hope. Hope that, like Ogun, he too could make a difference in the world.